you know, I'm not going to point any fingers, but for whatever one of the teams did, basically the legs were basically a mess. So we knew that we had to open them up.
What's up, desktoppers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. And today we're discussing Chad Nicholls speaking on Big Ramy's quads. Why is there a hole in his quads? Plus much more. And guys, get in the comments, let me know your thoughts on this video as well. And I've gone through a lot of stuff and a lot of details and a lot of searching to actually find where this was, because I did have someone message me, and we're going to show his latest physique update on the screen as well while we talk about all this sort of stuff. I'm going to feature an interview that Chad Nicholls did with Fouad Abiad on the Real Bodybuilding podcast as well on here, where he speaks about Big Ramy's quads, when he started working with him, who may have actually caused this damage, plus much more. But let's look at this latest physique update, and he's looking crazy. Obviously leaving out the legs this time around, and I'm not surprised by that necessarily, just because, you know, obviously he copped a bit of criticism, and he seems like he's standing to attention there. We can't see any lumps from the outside of the quads, but he's got something going on in the front. But he looks absolutely enormous. Great condition too at 6.5 weeks out. Let's see here. Back looks good, but he looks like he really contracts that back. Like when he actually hits his back relaxed, he's contracting it back. I think he could look even bigger and more ridiculous in this video. So very, very impressive there by Big Ramy. The delts to me don't look like they'll be an issue. I think he's been staying away from him, but really he's been critiqued for many body parts. I mentioned his delts because they did look a little bit, I suppose you'd say, unrealistic, but it's probably just inflammation from shots, to be honest. But that conditioning looks really good this far out. Let's see how the other shots are looking as he goes into the front double bicep. Now that looks absolutely ridiculous. This is going to be something, if he can bring that to the Olympia stage, if the quads don't look too bad, I mean, that is going to be so, so impressive on stage. The front double looks next to unbeatable. Just there's so much thickness and mass there. And it's going to be interesting to see how that looks on stage next to like an Andrew Jacked. His front double doesn't, front lat spread, sorry, doesn't flow quite as well. Just because the delts they poke up a little bit, but to be honest, it's still a really strong shot. Let's have a look how the side chest looks on this one. Very good. Super thick. Crazy. We won't spend too much time on this. I'll try to skip through it a little bit for you guys. Now, as he hits that one, let's have a look at this lower back. Sorry, I'll go back a little bit more for you. You can see there's so much thickness there. Like the traps are actually poking up a lot there. The delts are ridiculous. Just a lot of mass on that back. And I think we're going to see the biggest Big Ramy of all time. Lat spread looks ridiculous. The delts don't look like they're overpowering the traps too much, as they have sort of looked a little bit in the past. And then as he comes back into this back double bicep. Oh, I don't know what just happened, man. Oh, okay, sorry, that was the end of the posing video. So I wanted to actually basically sort of confirm who was doing what when in terms of who was taking over the coaching, because Chad Nicholls does mention something, and this becomes pretty interesting a little bit later on, as you guys can see in this video. So Big Ramy looking freakish. This was July 10th, 2018, in the lead up to the 2018 Mr Olympia. Then it says Big Ramy and Oxygen Gym are not playing any games. So obviously he's working with Oxygen Gym at that stage. And I'm not sure who his exact coach was, if it was Abdullah, if it was one of these other, Ahmed Askar, or one of these other guys. Let me know in the comments if you know that as well. So obviously for the 2018 Mr Olympia, Big Ramy was working with Oxygen Gym, and that will become more relevant after. And then as we go through this, Big Ramy leaves Oxygen Gym, Palumbo responds. Big Ramy leaves Oxygen Gym to work with Phil Heaths. I think that's wrong. That was by Nick Strength and Power, because he's never worked with Hani Rambod, I don't believe, as far as I know. So that was on the 22nd of September 2018. So I assume straight after the 2018 Mr Olympia that was. And that Mr Olympia, I believe he placed second as well to Phil Heath. So interesting decision to leave Oxygen Gym there, but we may find out the actual reason for that as well. So let's go through this, and let's get to the point where we listen to Chad Nicholls on Fouad Abiad's
So what I
podcast.
did was, even before we started the off-season climbing, because I knew we were going to, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I started looking at what needed to be fixed.
Okay.
So one of the first things I knew we were going to have to do was we're going to have to like open them legs up. So we started immediately deep tissue, like scraping.
Okay, wait 1 second.
A lot of stuff with the legs.
Sorry, Chad. I don't mean to interrupt you. Just because some of the people that watch the show are not, they're more casual. So what is it? What do you mean when you say open the legs up?
So one of the knocks that
So guys can get quite bound up in the legs, especially. So that's not sort of a surprising thing when he says open the legs up. Obviously, the scraping, for you guys who haven't seen that, it's pretty intense. It's a lot of pain if you've had scraping done before. It's basically almost like running the back of someone's forearm up the outside of your quad and around your quads. It's extremely painful. So Chad wanted him to have that done, obviously, to open the legs up, make them expand a little bit more, and show that separation.
he always had was like the depth and separation of his quads. Okay, and so, I'm not going to point any fingers, but for whatever one of the teams did, basically the legs were basically a mess. So we knew that.
So obviously he's saying what one of the teams did basically his legs were a mess. So that was 2018 that he was actually the last coach he was with, I believe, before Chad Nicholls was actually it might have been Neil Hill, but he had a very, very short stint with Neil Hill. But he did go to Oxygen Gym and was with them. He had a few stints with Oxygen Gym. And I think that, Chad, without pointing any fingers, is potentially saying that Oxygen Gym were the ones that actually potentially made him, you can say what you want about it, actually shoot his legs. But that's at least what it sounds like. But it could have been one of his other past coaches or teams before.
We had to open them up. We had to break up a lot of tissue in there. Yeah. Exactly. We had to open that up. So we went and.
Don't know if you guys heard that, but he said we had to break up a lot of tissue in there. And then Fouad said scar tissue. And then Chad says exactly. So to me, that's Chad Nicholls saying that scar tissue is the reason for his quads being like that. And why would there be scar tissue there? Typically, that will be because the shots are being done there. And I'd say primarily the shots are being done there. Now, people would say, why would you shoot your quads if you've got these sort of issues? Now, there's a few reasons why you might actually do that. Now, one reason being is because the other body parts might have issues. Now, you might have several shots. You might have your delts looking funny, which we did comment on. The top of Ramy's glutes, I've seen little lumps there. For whatever reason, he may just get inflamed more. Maybe his gear's not super, super pure, but you got to imagine that Big Ramy, in the position he's in, it's going to be pretty damn pure, especially being out in Oxygen Gym as well. It may have been the amounts and just overshooting. I'm not too sure. But to me, that says to me that basically he shot his gear there. Like any other body would have got to put it somewhere, and maybe he concentrated it too much in the same area. Could have led to some sort of nerve damage, some sort of scar tissue, and then he sort of needed to have that broken up. So love to hear this and love to actually get that inside knowledge from Chad Nicholls.
A lot of deep tissue right from the get-go. So that's something we've literally been doing now for a year. A lot of just scraping deep into those separations to get deep into those separations. Breaking up like that outer quad just so it, that sweep and the way that everything lays is better. That was the first thing.
So Chad Nicholls has a lot of really good points, man, in terms of what he wanted to improve. Now, the main reason I think for him getting that done in the first place was because there was lumps on that outer quad in 2018. Now, he placed second at the Olympia. It's because Ramy is that good and he's that big. But I'll try to find in this video where the 2018 picture is, because that will tell you guys a better story. Now, this is a little bit earlier than 2018, but when it goes to 2018, which is coming up very, very soon, I believe it's this one here. So there's a clear difference here. You can see in that right leg in 2018, there's a cut there through his left medialis, which is on the right-hand side of the screen, which is the muscle just inside the knee. And you can see that little line on the outside. Now, to me, it's not as big of an issue here as it is right now. I think that, it's more of an issue now by the most recent photos, but perhaps it's just the lighting. So I'm not saying that that's a major issue right now. It could be an issue, it might not be. And I think it's a reason to talk about it because Big Ramy is Mr. Olympia. He is obviously, the best in the world. And people saying, well, maybe you shouldn't talk about it, leave it to the judges. But the judges don't really talk about it. We don't know if this is going to be an issue. If the judges came out and were very transparent and open and could tell us, hey, a hole in the leg or a divot out of a muscle is judged the same as if there was a lump to the same degree coming out of a muscle. I don't know. Maybe it's not the same. Maybe it is the same. This was a debate on a recent episode of Fouad Abiad's podcast, I believe it was Bodybuilding and Bollocks or Bro Chat. And also I'll put the link in the description as well for that full episode and that full interview with Chad Nicholls. I'll do that after this video because it is a good interview as well. And you get a lot of insight into what Chad Nicholls has to say, but we don't know how much this could be marked down. I think it's maybe progressively got worse. If there is some sort of scar tissue, there could be some sort of nerve damage around there. If there is scar tissue there, to me, it looks like a spot that's been shot a lot and potentially there's nerve damage, because I can't imagine it would divot in to that level that it looks so obvious in this photo. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, some people are saying that in the comments, I'll go to him now, here, MVP. He won with the same issue, so what's the problem? Now, I think the issue is getting worse progressively. And the fact that we're seeing such a divot in that quad now compared to what we used to see his quads look like, which we can see on the screen right now, then you can see they're just progressively getting worse. That was 2017, there's a little bit, sorry, that's 2016. This is 17 right here, I believe, and then that's 18. And there's a clear difference between 17 and 18, and he was working with Oxygen Gym at that stage. This is 2020 here. You can see there's still a lump there, but I just don't think it's as deep. Even the other ones in his quads, I still don't think they're as deep. But that one on the right-hand side, you know, if it's double the depth and it starts to look very glaringly obvious under the lights, under the lights of a Mr. Olympia stage, if there's less front on light, more overhead light, it could look like a clear dark hole on his leg. So I think that's when it could come into being an issue. I don't think it will be though, guys. So don't walk away from this video saying that I'm hanging this on Big Ramy. Big Ramy is the #1 bodybuilder in the world, and he's going to be critiqued no matter what, because he is such a good bodybuilder. So Big Ramy, I still think he's the favorite going into the 2022 Mr. Olympia, but everyone's saying it's a foregone conclusion. I think you got to sort of check that, go back, look at the photos, and see how many good guys are coming into this Mr. Olympia. We've got an all-time best William Bonac. We've got Nick Walker, who's on the rise, who's made some really good improvements. We've got Brandon Curry, who wants redemption from a contest he won, the Arnold Classic earlier in the year. He wants to become only the first man to ever win the Arnold and the Olympia in the same year. Can he actually achieve that? And there's a whole bunch of other names like Hardy. There's just so many contenders for this 2022 Mr. Olympia. Guys, let me know who you have winning the 2022 Mr. Olympia. Is it Big Ramy? Is it someone else? And what do you think about what Chad Nicholls had to say about it being scar tissue, not synthol? Now, synthol could cause scar tissue, no doubt. So I suppose you can't rule that out, but I can't imagine Big Ramy would be silly enough to inject synthol into his outer sweep. And the reason why we do see these guys like have, I suppose you'd say, lumps and bumps is because gear maybe isn't as pure these days, you could say. There's more stuff that will give you more of a pip, that will cause more inflammation in the area, all that sort of stuff. That could be the reason why we didn't see the 90s guys have it as much. And maybe guys are just using more now. Many guys of today will say that's maybe not true, but potentially it is. Let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments. And CT Rin says they're all synthol out. I don't think so. I think that's just scar tissue from shots of gear, essentially. So anyway, MVP says Ramy 3-peat. Yeah, there's a good chance of that. Prediction, Crizzo top 3 from MMA and boxing clips. I disagree personally. And yeah, appreciate you guys. That's not where you inject legs. It must be done in upper and outer area always. Yeah, some guys... I've seen some weird lumps on guys' glutes too, where I'm like, wow, you're actually shooting them that low. That's a bit dangerous. But yeah, anyway, appreciate you guys getting in the comments so much. Like I said, let me know your thoughts if you're watching this live or if you are watching the replay as well. Share this out on Instagram and all that sort of stuff, and I much appreciate it. Ethan007, bro, Xavier, go ask Chad instead of speculating BS. I have asked Chad, and Chad, obviously, I took a part of his interview, so I'm not speculating. I literally took a part from his interview on Fouad Abiad's channel, put that in there, and I have been contacting Chad. I did try to interview Chad yesterday, but he's been a little bit under the weather, and I'll be interviewing him next week, most likely, all going well. So make sure you guys do subscribe, hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills, at Desktop Bodybuilding, including all my 2022 Mr. Olympia coverage. I've got coverage of some contests, hopefully this weekend, if I can get enough time to get onto that. And also for my interview coming up very soon with Chad Nicholls, the coach of Big Ramy and also the coach of William Bonac. Thank you guys so much for all the love in the comments. It's much appreciated. So that's it for this one, guys. For Xavier Wills, Desktop Bodybuilding, we are